information about the Chinese market. Unfortunately, we only got 15 minutes, so I'm going to do my best. There's a lot to talk about, but just about me, I'm a Dutch guy. I've lived in China for 6 years now. I'm a hardcore gamer. So I joined NetEase as the head of mobile business development. And who is NetEase is the question we've been getting over the past 2 years as we're expanding. Actually, it's a very large email news, media and games company that's been developing PC MMOs in China for a very long time. Then we moved into mobile. We've been doing that very successfully. Right now, we're worth $24 billion on the US NASDAQ. We develop games like Fantasy Westward Journey, which is now #1 in China. We do all the Blizzard games in China, like World of Warcraft and Hearthstone, and the upcoming ones as well. So we are very established in China, but not as well known in the West yet, and we're working on that. I want to run you through a little bit of the Chinese market data. Now, we just had a very nice talk by Newzoo, and we like those guys very much in reading their reports. But we think there's nobody better than actual developers and publishers in China that know the market data, because it's a very intransparent market. If we look at how the market has developed from 2010 to 2015, we can see that mobile games have taken up a much bigger share than before, but also the market in general has grown very much. You can see that on this slide. The total mobile game market volume before was 1 billion, that was 5 years ago, and now it's about 51 billion RMB. And RMB is about 6 RMB per $1. Okay, you can also see that in 2010 there was no console at all. We often get the question, how do consoles do in China? Well, here you can see 2010 non-existent at all. They were allowed last year. Now we have 0.2% of the market on console. So not very good. Web games are there, but mobile is really growing and PC is stable. PC makes an awful lot of revenue, but releasing new products is virtually not profitable anymore. All right, then the total revenue of the market, we also heard that in the previous talk. We see essentially that the top 10 of the market takes half of the revenue in total. So we had about 13 billion RMB revenue to $2 billion US revenue in the last quarter. The market is slowing somewhat, but it is still growing. Now, if we look at what kind of games are actually popular in the Chinese market, we see a big shift. It has really changed in the past year. We see the rise of MMOs. If you look at a year ago, Q4 2015, you can see that MMOs took about a 14% share of the market. Now we're in Q4 2015, and they've taken up a third of the market. Also because of our own games, Fantasy Westward Journey and Westward Journey Online, the number 1 and 2, they are MMO-style games. On the other hand, on the right side of the graph, we see that strategy is there, but a little less. We have mobile and shooting games capturing a bit of market share, also mainly because of 1 or 2 games doing really well. What has shrunk a lot, casual. Really hard to do casual right now in China. There's just not a lot of money to be made. Buying users costs an awful amount of money. So there are only a few titles that can still succeed in the market. Card games also going down, ARPG going down. So we're seeing that the market is definitely shifting to a new type of gameplay, which is good. It offers some opportunities. Now, what you also might have heard is the distribution in China is very fragmented. And I just wanted to touch shortly on that. In China, it's not just the App Store and Google Play. In fact, there's no Google Play whatsoever. There might be players trying to get around it, of course, but it's really not there. It might come back actually in 2016. They're working on it, but as a result, the Chinese market is extremely fragmented. And here you can see a sort of distribution of the different Android channels and their market share on the Android platform. Now, there's another thing you should know about Android distribution. Because of all these different stores, all the phones are open. They're open to side-loading apps. And that means that actually, besides going through an app store, you can also directly download the games to your device. So what all the data firms are showing in their charts, like Newzoo or Talking Data, saying, okay, this is the size of the Android market and these are the top players, you won't find NetEase in there. And why is that? Because NetEase prefers not to go through the app stores if we can avoid it. In fact, we like to do marketing and use our media power to send users a QR codes which are very popular in China, or just a download link to directly get the game onto their device, which saves a lot of cost, because on the next slide you can see what does an Android distribution platform actually charge you. Now, if they charge you 30%, like Apple does, you have a good deal. But most of the time they will charge you up to 50%, 60% of your revenue, which is a lot, and it makes you not as profitable as easy as you would elsewhere in the world. Now, these distributors, they compete with each other. If you're a small company, they have a lot of bargaining power. But if you have a big successful game, if it's not on their platform, then they're losing out market share compared to the other channels. So they want the game on their platform, and they will give you a preferential rate. So it makes a lot of sense to work with a partner that has this scale in China. Now, I talked a little bit about the market data, but I actually want to dive specifically into mobile games. So let's look at the top 50 grossing games in China. I don't think that for a lot of you there are many familiar icons on this page. Now, the next thing I want to do is take away all the games that are made by the number 1 and 2 in the market in China to see the result. We are only left with these, which means that the biggest 2 companies in the market in China absolutely dominate the top 50. Now, the next page I want to show you how many games are actually left if we take away all the games that are developed in China. And that's this. You have Supercell with Clash of Clans and Boom Beach, you have Hearthstone, and you have Crossfire. And that's it. Okay? So this is just a reality check on making it to the top 50 grossing in China. All right, so let me tell you a little bit how you can stand a chance going to China. The art style, very important. Now, Chinese like cute art style, which means like a big head, a small body, big eyes, a background in Chinese literature or some background story. Westward Journey is a very good example of such a game. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to have a background in Chinese literature. It can also be Western or leaning to realism a little bit. So Clash of Clans, pretty good example. It's still cute. It's a magical world. It works. It's accepted. And finally, you have the art style cartoon. Just very happy, very colorful. Is also very much appreciated. On the hardcore side, we see that a little bit more realism is appreciated, but also not too much. So going towards the extreme realism is not appreciated at all. Plus, something like pixel art is also totally not accepted. So you can pretty much forget about doing that in China as well. All right, so IPs, we also heard of that in Newzoo's presentation. Like, IPs are very good, but not all IPs work in China. And even the IPs that are known in China might not work very well. There's a reason for this, and especially related to the movie IPs. There's not so much engagement in China when people go to the cinema to watch a non-Chinese movie. It's not like they get very engaged in the universe, and if the movie is very big, then a game automatically will do very well. So you have to choose which IPs are suitable. Now, they could be IPs that have been previously introduced to China, like Warcraft, or they could be IPs that have been in China for a long time, like Tom and Jerry. It's been around in China for 30 years as well. Kung Fu Panda is a modern IP that works, obviously, because it has some relation with the cultural background. So there are some Western IPs that would work, but there are also quite a lot of Western IPs that, although big, although successful in the movie world, might not do well in China at all. Okay, so what must you have if you want to go to China? Suitable art, I just discussed it. Free to play, also very essential. There is a premium market. In fact, there wasn't really much of a premium market before, but Apple introduced a 1 RMB, which is about 15, 20 cents price point in China, which kind of got the market going, but it's really mostly to get exposure for your game and get more downloads than that you actually make money as a premium game. Then you need to have PvP or cooperative gameplay or some kind of competitive or comparative element in your game, because that's the whole trigger for monetization. If you don't have that, you're probably also not going to do a lot of revenue at all. Single player doesn't really work. And finally, also a major differentiator is easy control. Chinese gamers, they love that they can just play it with one hand or even just watch, meaning that you build in an automation mode or an autopilot so that the game can run and you can just look what is going on. Now, how do we look at the games ourselves when we develop them? First of all, we choose gameplay over monetization design. This is a pretty obvious one, but we try to make games that players like and then put the monetization far in the back, not when you start the game immediately. We think that the money will come if the players stick around long enough. And actually, we design our games more to appeal to a user's quality time. Like you decide during the day, tonight I'm going to play this game, even if it's on a mobile phone. We want to have the quality time of the user, not their bathroom break or other quick time in between. Actually, the games that are right now 1 and 2 in the market, they require users to be there for 3 to 4 hours a day. And that means that it's essentially an additional society where you have an additional life next to your real life. And we're unapologetic about that. We want people to be engaged for a longer time, not just trying to push users through as many as possible. And we apply IP only to gameplay that has been proven. So typically our IP projects are not working on the basis of a new type of gameplay. We try different gameplays in the market, and then if a gameplay has good KPIs, then we decide, okay, let's apply an IP that can make it even bigger. But we don't want to use the IP something that the players recognize as being good or something that they like, and then letting them in the game and discover that actually the gameplay is untested or not something that would appeal to many users. So if you would ask me what are the roads to China for a Western developer, you essentially would have the most obvious option to be better. Being better is probably the hardest choice for any Western developer. Why? Because you're competing head-on with Chinese companies that know what they're doing and have the expertise in the market. You can try, but virtually nobody has succeeded. Second, and I think this is a very viable solution for most people, is to be modest. Maybe don't aim for the top 50 or the top 100, but as we saw in the Newzoo presentation as well, the market is so huge that you can take a small part of it and it still is a very significant revenue, especially if the team is not very big. And finally, be surprising. Bring to the market what hasn't been brought to the market before. You can see some of the icons below. They all had their own elements that wasn't in the market and what made them successful in the end. It was either football management, sports games were never popular in the market, or Boom Beach, a new type of gameplay. Or Monument Valley appealed to Chinese consumers because it was something they had never seen before. Things like that will help you get a significant share of the market. Now, this is all I can tell you in a short period of time, and 15 minutes is really not enough to give you a comprehensive view of the market. So if anyone wants to know more about China, I'll be happy to discuss it with you whenever you have time. Thanks very much.